Hey, it's Lauren, and I'm so excited to share today's content, which is talking with the amazing Dom Domasky, a publisher over there at Motivation Champs. We love the stuff that they're doing. They publish a lot of nonfiction books, including memoir as well, and we dive really great into a bunch of different little miniature conversations that have to do with what publishers look for when working with authors, what authors should expect when working with a publisher, and a whole lot about the craft of writing, especially when it comes to memoir. So if that's something that you feel like you could seriously benefit from, I think you're really going to get a lot out of today's episode. So feel free to check that out. Without further ado, I'm introducing Dom Domasky. Thank you for being here and doing something kind of fun and cool like this with me. I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, I enjoy it.
Why don't you tell me or tell everyone, I guess, a little bit of who you are, what you do, and maybe how you found your way into the book publishing space, because that's so particular. And I'm always interested to hear how people find their way into that.
Very unique. Anybody finding their way. I'm 40 some years old and I'm not sure I've found my way anywhere yet. I am searching, and for anybody out there, it's okay to be on this path. The path is not linear, it's winding, it's up, it's down. Years ago, I had a business. I went broke, lost $500,000. I was in my 20s. I was reading Norman Vincent Peale and Joel Osteen and Jeffrey Gitomer and John C. Maxwell as I was trying to pull myself up. It wasn't a good time. Things stunk. I
Yeah.
almost sit on the curb a lot of days and cry out in front of my restaurant. But I would read these books, and it helped me get through those times, and it helped me start over. And I started to think that I had something to say. It was more about getting beat up or going broke or
Mm-hmm.
uh, not being so great at things. And so I started writing my first book, and it took 7 years. I wasn't any good at it, and I made every mistake there that you could possibly make. So looking back at it, it was underdeveloped. I gave it my best for who I was at the time. And so I learned the mistakes I made with publishers that were preying on my hopes and dreams and just pushing me through the process. And people started to ask me how I did it, or I'd be speaking and they'd tell me a story, and I'd start to think,
Mm-hmm.
that person has a story, that person has a story, this person's asking me how they could write a book, and I thought, I'll help them. And that's how it all started. And so the company's Motivation Champs. We, as many ways as we can, try to help people share their story in different ways.
That's awesome. So is it mostly nonfiction that you work with or memoirists, or do you also do a little
Nonfiction,
bit of fiction?
nonfiction memoirs. It, I say, it has to do the world better good in some way. So I live in this world of inspiration and positivity. So if somebody has a story, whether it's a children's book, whether it's a graphic novel, whether it's a memoir, we just try to get them out to the world. So that it just has, the caveat is I I am not your person for murder mysteries or
Yeah.
uh, romance novels. I guess it could be positive, but it's not what I understand.
I have kind of a soft spot for fiction or for memoir, because I feel like I tend to be really, really picky about the stories that I read. And I think
Yeah,
for something that's nonfiction, like a memoir, it's so much easier for it to have like a natural kind of depth to it because you know that it's true, like it's all
yeah.
real when you're
Mm.
reading it. So I think that's so great that that's kind of like, the point that you really try to bring out with the books that you acquire from
And
these writers and stuff.
you as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I guess a follow-up question to that would be, what do you wish that authors or writers knew when working with someone like you as a publisher, which I'm sure that invites in a lot of different, opinions and thoughts on that. So anything that you have to share about that?
Well, I'll go. You can cut me off at any time and mute the recording. Or
It's all good.
this guy went on for way too long. The first thing I think is, it's your book, your baby, it's your dream. So never let anybody take the rights. That's a whole different story. But
Hmm.
it's yours. You own it. Now,
Hmm.
that being said, you should also, if you are hiring somebody you believe that you trust, or working with somebody. Uh, you believe in them enough to want to partner with them. You should believe in them enough to, when they say, maybe we need to develop this here, or I'm not sure you want to say this, or this is getting a little long. You should trust in them that way too. You believed in them, they believe in you. It's for the better good. So Those would be two that I will start off with.
Do you feel like you kind of see some of that possessiveness with authors more often than not, where it's like, this is my book, this is what I want to see, and like kind of almost being shut off to some of that constructive criticism?
This will, I'm going to go direct to our storytellers here. The earlier they are in the career, in their writing journey, the more possessive they are.
Mm,
They wrote it it's so close to their heart a lot of times, and that's what they're holding on to. They're
yeah.
holding on to this story that's close to their heart, that I'm giving you a piece of me. Nobody's trying to take that piece of you away.
Mhm.
We're trying to improve it, make it better. You write how you're feeling that day, but that's not a story you wrote based on that day. And now
Mm,
you need to look at it from up in the sky and say, okay, does this chronologically, does this take, like if you're looking at a memoir would start with an incident or a point in their life and build to a crescendo. And then,
mhm.
so the same with when you're writing in that process. So the answer, yes, to think that I wrote it first and it's perfect the way it is, it isn't true.
Oh my gosh, I have so many supplemental questions to follow everything that you just said. And I loved hearing all of it too. And it reminds me of a quote that I heard from Stephen King. I don't know if you've heard it either, which is that it starts with you but ends with the reader. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
sometimes where some of that disconnect happens, where it's like it's your story because it happened to you or for you, however you want to look at it, assuming it's a memoir, and it's taking that vision and like translating it in a way that's going to access other people where they're at, because there's those elements of relatability, or they can like
Yeah.
see themselves
Wow.
in your challenges and in your story. And it's so hard from like the perspective of a memoirist to just not get so sucked into like the black hole that are the vignettes.
Yeah.
And because it's like you get those little spotlights and it's like, okay, but where's the greater narrative? Like, where's the greater arc?
So
It's,
how do you know when you're working with a author? How do you know who the end user, the end client is, the reader?
yeah,
Where is the point where you say, but the reader,
yeah.
but we're grinding through this, or but you already said that. How do you manage that?
Like my opinion is that you should ideally know your target person or audience before you write the book, because I feel like
Hmm.
that naturally helps shape some of the direction and especially the language too, because
Yeah.
you already have someone in mind that you're writing the book for. And that's a trick that I've heard from other authors too, is that like I think it was Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love, that best-selling book from like 2004 or whatever. And she said that her trick was that she was writing her book literally to a specific
Yeah.
person. Like it was initially meant to be a letter, and then it turned into like this whole book, and then it sold millions of copies and stuff. And I think it's important to know either the audience, or even more ideally the person within the audience, like the tree within the forest, that you can just write it to, because it's for you, like you're getting it out of you and into the world, but you're also balancing that with knowing that someone else on the other end with a face
Yeah.
is absorbing everything that you say. So that's my personal opinion.
One thing let's just pause for a second for
Yeah.
the people that are writing the books, and it crosses between the marketing too here, is sometimes people will say that your target market is you. If you're looking for an avatar, it's you. And then the next step of that is it's you before you had it all figured out.
Mhm.
So not that any of us really do, but you before you had it all figured. So you're speaking to you, and you needed that information. You needed this help. You needed these business tips. You needed to learn how to tie the
Yeah.
bait on a rod, or whatever you are talking about. They need you. You're talking to them at an earlier point in the journey. You got to make sure that the target market you're looking for can handle what you're writing,
Mhm.
because whether it's bad grammar, content, or anything, if at any point the reader has to close the book, whether that's big words they got to go look up,
Mhm.
whether that's content that's abrasive, they might not pick your book back up. I've gone this Socrates three questions lately.
Yeah.
Is it good? Is it helpful? Is it true?
Yeah.
This makes me think of that. Okay, does this book help? Is it current? All those things. Absolutely.
So if someone was like, I meet a lot of people, and I'm sure you do too, where they find out what you do, you publish books or you market books or whatever, and then, it opens up the discussion of like, oh, well, I've actually been thinking about writing a book, and oh, it's just so much work. So like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I don't know how it all works. So Is there anything, a piece of advice, words of wisdom, a starting point, a checklist for what you would offer to people who are at the stage where they're curious about writing the book and they're asking a lot of those what if questions, but they
Yeah.
haven't necessarily executed on it yet?
Well, we could go on this subject for we could start a
Yeah.
whole new series every day forever. So
That's true.
one, just do it. Start writing. What are you passionate about? Well, how do I start writing? Okay, it can be that rudimentary, whether it's a notebook, whether it's Google Docs, whether it's Word. Like, okay, like some people say, oh, I just want to write a book. Well, why?
Yeah.
I want to write a book. Why? What are you passionate about? So to this goal that I want to write a book, I don't like that unless you know why you want to write a book. I want to write a book because I have a message of I overcame this and I think I can help people. I want to write a book because I use this formula to become a successful business leader. I want to write a book because I flip houses and I think this could help other people. Okay. Is your why really pure? Because if it's pure, no matter how hard, no matter how long, you'll fight through it.
I would also say that that really, really helps with marketing too, at least from my perspective, because those are always, it's always the super basic questions that I'm asking people. If I'm ever working with someone one on one, it's like, okay, let's talk about it. Like, not only what are your goals, but like, what are you wanting to do all of this for? And also, like, what's unique about your book? Because that's going to help access the right people where they're at and giving them the stuff that they really
Yeah.
need to hear in that moment.
You know, why are you qualified to write about what you're writing about? I'm a mother, that I'm a caregiver, that I'm a lawyer that studied this, I'm a scientist that studies this. I went through it myself. I've done, but you have to be qualified in
Hmm.
some way. And I'm not saying letters after your name, whether it's
Hmm.
experience or letters after your name, or that you've done a lot of research on the subject or read hundreds of books or that you're
Hmm.
good at riding bikes. I have a author that talks a lot about she rode her bike across Africa many times. She competes. And so when she wants to talk about riding bikes, and introducing that into mental health, Kathy Judson, it works because she's been there, she's done it.
I think with at least my thoughts on this is that with people with a lot of letters and credentials and stuff after their name, they went to Harvard, they have a PhD, whatever. I think a lot of the magic in someone like that is creating a very accessible and easy to digest kind of book because you have so much knowledge and expertise to share that it's not going to land at all if you're using a lot of these technical terms, kind of like what you were saying earlier, where it's like, that might be great for an academic. It might be great for someone within your profession. But if you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
tell a story about how you did X, Y, Z, I think it's really easy to kind of shift into like work mode or like academic mode and
Yeah.
just kind of like ooze prestige without it actually landing anywhere. Using simple words to create something or communicate something really great just makes it even more unique and even more powerful.
I would start with this on that subject.
Hmm.
It's all about story. So
Yeah.
stories are what people connect with. So we can have all the facts and figures. I like facts and figures. In a lot of
Hmm.
books, I need facts and figures to back up what you're saying.
Right.
I need the Harvard study. I need the case studies. I get it. But it starts with story to connect. Take
Hmm.
me on this journey. Tell me why I should care. Tell me why you're passionate about it. And so everybody gets it. Everybody can connect with that. So what are these common bonds that people can connect with? Then to if you want to use the facts, figures, or the big
Yeah.
words. But all this on these big words, let's just sidebar here. That a lot of people want to use these big words. They don't always fit because now if you're forcing me to look up this word
Hmm.
and I go look it up, it better fit because now I'm saying you didn't
Right.
even use you made me look up the word and it isn't even the correct usage of the word. So
Yeah.
that's frustrating. Or when you see these $1 million words that seem crowbarred in,
Yeah.
and now you see it 3 times in the chapter, 4 times in the chapter. From a publisher side of the view, I will often check the PDF document, and once I get a word like that, I'll go right into find all and see
Hmm.
how many times it was used, and say if you use this or this example this many times, 111 times we use this in this amount of pages. So
I feel like, oh, go ahead. You go ahead. You look
yeah,
like you're going
so
to say
so
something.
for people writing, whether you're pitching or anything from this side, people are looking at that kind of thing. It's a turnoff. So when I'm analyzing your document, when I'm reading through it with my team, something
Hmm.
I pick up on.
I feel like the first thing you want to do is make an apathetic reader curious, and I feel like the last thing you want to do is suck them out of the book once you get them there. And
Yeah,
a
right.
great way to do that is with, some of those common errors that you might come across with your work.
I love the art of the story. I feel like it's a dance. And the dance there it's ups and downs of it, and you're taking them on a emotional ride. So I believe in story structure that
Mhm.
whether you're writing a memoir, it should go like this. You should take me. And there's so many ways, like let's say on Netflix. When you watch a show on Netflix, Netflix will dump you right into the story. It's common to their story structure.
Mhm.
Every episode, they dump you right in. You see something going on, and then they'll take you back. It's almost every show on Netflix is done on that same structure. It
Mhm.
works for them. And so when you're writing a book, you can see like that memoir incident, what then it takes me. Or if you're going chronologically, it could be some kind of thing that happened early, and now I'm showing you my growth
Mhm.
throughout.
Is there like a question that I've come across or that people have asked me and that I've also wondered myself is like, especially in the case of memoir, when you're writing it or when you're crafting it, how do you know when you're sharing too much? Or how do you know when you're maybe over explaining something? And at least my response to that is it always needs to serve a purpose for the reader. If you're putting something in to make yourself feel better, I would say it's probably not necessary if it doesn't immediately contribute to the story or educate the reader on something. So I'd be curious, like, kind of what your thoughts are on that.
I had an author one time, and something traumatic happened in the story, and there was almost like a chase, and then the author went into the detail of the car that they were driving, what was on the radio,
Mhm.
how they were positioned in the car, the type of seats in the car. Now something traumatic is happening,
Yeah.
and I, as a reader, want to have a resolution over what is going on. The pause at this heated moment that is an awkward pause doesn't make sense, because how did how did pausing at that point to tell me about something that we if you were saying, like sometimes they'll call it Hitchcock's time bomb, where they show you something in a room that
Mhm.
we can see, or they'll drop something in a room, and now we're gonna go back to that car later on because that was important.
Mhm.
But to go away from something that doesn't take the story forward right then, it's maddening to me.
Well, because it's like you're reading like such a high stakes scene or part of the book. Like, who cares what the chair looks like? I want to know what happens. And
Yes,
like,
yeah, right.
unless there's foreshadowing or it's symbolic in some kind of way. But in that case, I would say, place it somewhere else except for in the middle of the traumatic event that's happening either before or after.
You dropped in, you took me out, you opened up something that I really would like to know about. Like,
Mhm.
did you why did you bring this in? Is it because this person influenced your life in some way? Is it because in this moment you were there? It didn't go anywhere. It was just crowbar the name, crowbar that uh,
Mhm.
oh, I want to show people how many people I know. I want to show people how smart I am. I
Mhm.
want to show people all these things that don't move the story forward. It didn't help the reader.
Like sometimes it's so easy for your nose to get super close to the painting to see the
Yep.
whole picture. And I think either, like beta readers or a writers group or an editor or something like that can be so valuable because it's like, okay, here's where you drop the ball. Here's where you're giving me too much. You introduce this and you never circle back to it. Like I want to know what that is. It's just I feel like it's such a specific kind of craft that not many people realize how difficult it is until they're in it and they're writing it
Yeah.
themselves because everyone thinks that they can write a book and then it's like
Hmm.
give it a go, see what you learn, I
Right. And I would encourage everybody to go for it.
yeah.
But if I was going to spend money, even as a publisher of books, I would say spend your money at some point in the process on an editor first. Make sure your work is edited and developed, and
Mhm.
then you can do all the things, and hopefully you find publishing companies that would edit and things like that. But to think you're going to do it with no editing, please don't. Please, I'll speak directly. Please don't. It's a recipe for disaster. If you
Mhm.
have a poorly edited book, you're done. If the
Mhm.
story's done, because they'll get through. They'll open it. They'll read one page and be like, "This is terrible." on board.
I would say if there's anything to invest in out of pocket, or to, communicate with your publisher about, it would be awesome editing and an awesome book cover.
Right. When I see ones made on like
Like
clip
Canva.
art and yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right. It's very clear. It's not professional. And then so some people say I'm going to do it myself. I'll design my own cover. Well, they were great at engineering, not designing covers. They were great at however they became successful. So to cut corners, you risk having an inferior product that goes out to the market, and then people are like, I thought this guy was an expert in
Right.
whatever it was, and now I see this book. I question
Yeah.
whether he's an expert in the other thing. So you
Hmm.
can, a lot of times if you put out an inferior product, you can actually do your everybody thinks that it's
Yeah.
going to benefit their brand. If it's good, if it stinks, it's going to do harm to your brand. And that's what
Hmm. I feel like, yeah, you risk losing credibility if you kind of cut corners in that way. It's like, oh, I thought you were like this person with an awesome story, or this person with a lot of knowledge to share, and
yeah,
your book doesn't really add up in that way,
yeah.
maybe. Yeah, it's so I guess as we kind of start to wrap up, a more technical question is, what is like your editing process? If you're working with an author, someone comes to you, they have an awesome book on hand, you say yes to them. What does that process generally look like?
The first thing I like to do is I have to see the manuscript, You might have one page done. You might have 140,000 words cleanly edited that are put together. Once we are able to review that document, we know, oh, if like, I could have a beautiful conversation with you, it could be the greatest storyteller. And then you send me 9 pages full of emojis. Although you were a great oral storyteller, when I got your document, it needs a lot of work.
Hmm.
So that's analyzing that document and seeing, okay, what does this need to take it to market? So some of this might be a little rough on your ex-wife, a little rough on your ex-husband, a little rough on society, a little rough on whatever that be. So then it becomes a matter of development. We would still
Hmm.
have editors go over it. So now if we have the 9 page one or the 1 page one, you have to figure out, do they need development? Do they need coaching? Do they need to go back to the drawing board? Do they need resources that
Hmm.
would help them get where they want to go? Now, a general book that comes in, it's 40 to 50,000 words, 60,000 words, something like that. I think that's probably the sweet spot for memoirs and coaching type books in today's world. I'm always reviewing myself, but it takes a whole team of people finding who's the right fit for the right person.
I think that only good things can come, generally speaking, from, seeking out that kind of support or hiring that kind of support, whether it's editing or book cover design or getting a second pair of eyes on it or whatever. So it sounds like you've got a really good team over there of people who only want the best for their
Yeah,
writers and authors.
I believe in that. And when you select teammates, you find ones. Not every teammate along the way fit the greater vision, but the ones that have been
Hmm.
around for years and years and years, and we keep adding members that have that same kind of um, want to make the stories a little better for the greater good.
I love that so much. I think you're doing such great work out there, and you're just only amplifying the stories that people want to tell, but maybe don't know how to tell it. So I think it's all good work that you're doing over there. If someone wanted to learn a little bit more about you or Motivation Champs, what's one of the first places you would want them to go to learn more?
Wherever you want to go, we are trying to put out 24/7. I have a mission 24/7, trying to put out inspiration, positivity, smiles 24/7, and help other people do the same. So if you have a piece of content like that, or you believe in that kind of content, well, we'd love to have you part of our community. So you'll find pages and groups everywhere, and if that are under Motivation Champs and the website. If you are a person that wants to share those kind of stories or write those kind of stories on the website, you'll also find that Motivation Champs ways to connect and follow as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for, being a part of this conversation, and I really hope that it helps some people. I mean, I love the conversation that we have. Only good things.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you got a lot out of this conversation with Dom. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing if you're tuning in on YouTube. Otherwise, if you're listening in on the Entrepreneurial Podcast, definitely feel free to rate and review. Lets other people know that you found this valuable, helps other people find it. So, and definitely be sure to check out Cre8tive Con at www.creative.con.com. Information on that is going to be listed in the description. We really hope to see you there. Take care until then. See you later. Bye. If you haven't heard, Cre8tive Con is a super awesome creative networking event for entrepreneurs in the Chicago area or even outside of the Chicago area. I was there, Dom was there last year. We had such a great experience with it. And I was lucky enough to collaborate and meet with a lot of people like Dom, publishers. There's TEDx speakers that are there. There's media personalities that are there, podcasters that are there, publishers. It's all kinds. It's such a great mix of people. And personally, what I really like about it is that you not only have opportunities to network and connect with people, but it's so accessible. I mean, the same
Yeah.
people that are speaking on stages are also the same people that are attending your workshop too. So I really like the kind of, the dimension of an event like that only has the potential to grow. So I have such a great experience with it, and that's my impression of it. So really looking forward to 2025. Dom, I don't know if you have anything that you want to share, but that's me.
No, on that same note, one of the things that I think is so important is networking. Getting out to as many people as you can, new circle, to be on a podcast or to go to an event like Cre8tive Con where you can meet another 300 people, 500 people, get in their community, go to their meetups. I think sometimes as an author, we're almost introverted, or we're so close to that message, like we talked about earlier. We're so close to it,
Yeah.
not necessarily ready to go out, or we're not comfortable going out. But like you said,
Mm-hmm.
creating that we were both at last year,
Mm-hmm.
such a supportive place. And by attending a networking event or this Cre8tive Con, you can meet these type of people. So I would always encourage do all the social media stuff, but also get out places in person and meet as many people as you can. We're seeing that there was a lot of partnerships or magic made last year, so it's pretty cool.
Creativity, connection, collaboration. It's all happening in February 2025 at what is it? The Intercontinental Hotel in downtown Chicago. Feel free to visit creativecon with an 8.com. Link for that's going to be in the description, maybe on the screen if I feel like it. And I think that's all we have. So please feel free to visit. Early bird tickets are on sale now.